So Trump does away with the levies and the tariffs, right, when it comes to components to your phone and electronics from China, right? But apparently he didn't get rid of the other tariffs that he put on China for some of their other products, right? So China gets pissed off and decides that they're going to come to the American consumer direct. And so what they proceed to do is they proceed to throw a lot of luxury name brands that we've all grown to love, like Lululemon, Fila, Under Armour. I don't know if Fila and Under Armour are luxury, but you also can think of other names like Gucci and Prada and this, that, and the other, right? This, that, and the third. And apparently, what they're telling people is that all those items that people used to joke about being knocked off from China, apparently they actually are knockoffs from China. And what China does is they send these products to these luxury brands where they end up putting on their made in the USA and their tags right here in America. But what you're buying for tons and tons of money each and every year is actually knockoff products from China. To give you an example, a $100 pair of leggings from Lululemon, you can actually buy that direct from the same manufacturer that's actually supplying Lululemon for, get this, $5 or $6. Is that nuts or what? Now, the reason I thought about this video today, or the way it kind of came up on my radar screen, was I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers, Anton Daniels. And he actually likes to buy expensive Nikes, expensive Gucci, Prada, right? A whole bunch of different articles of clothing that nobody in their right mind would purchase for the prices that they sell for. And he was actually bringing up the idea that he thinks China is lying, that they're just trying to say this to get around the tariffs. And he could very well be right. I'm sure if you were to ask some of the luxury brands out there, they can probably point to a couple different factories they have outside of China, right? They probably have factories everywhere, but I'd be willing to bet that they probably do have a couple nestled away in China where they're probably making a lot of their products in bulk. But then again, who knows? The reason it's funny is Anton Daniels is constantly trying to show people how successful he's been in life by some of the toys that he purchases. His people in his comments that watch his videos were basically saying, oh my God, you are trying to cope, because everybody and their brother knows that Anton Daniels is probably the most guilty of buying a lot of these products for his own personal use, not necessarily to resell or make money off of. But imagine, if you will, spending thousands of dollars on a bag. Meanwhile, the person down the street gets that same bag as a cheap knockoff for, let's say, $20 instead of $1,000. And you're the fool spending $1,000. That is embarrassing. And it led me to one belief that I think we should examine as vendors. Do you guys remember when those smash and grabs were occurring, and occasionally there would be a brave employee that would try to stop thieves from stealing clothing from these different department stores? And remember how we actually as a people got upset because these very department stores with these really brave employees, instead of them exalting those employees and telling everybody what a great person they were, they actually ended up firing them under the guise that they didn't want something to happen, and therefore the only protocol was to let the bad guys take the property, take the merchandise. Some of us, myself included, got very upset by that. It's like, hey, they're trying their darndest to protect the integrity of your store by not letting bad guys come in and steal all the inventory. You guys remember this, right? Tell me you remember this down below by putting a number 1 in the comments, right? So check this out. What if we come to find out that the reason stores like Lululemon threatened to fire employees if they tried stopping thieves was not just because they didn't want them to lose their life, but because if they did lose their life, people would have dug into the fact that they were losing their life not for some $100 garment of material, but for some $6 knockoff that Lululemon's putting their name on and selling for $100. In other words, if you know your products are garbage, of course you're not going to want somebody to lose their life protecting your trash. Now, am I saying that's what's happened? No, not at all. It's just, you and I walk together. I like to think about these things because no one else in the world is mentioning this. What if all these luxury brand companies are firing employees that try to stop shoplifters? Because if one of those employees lost their lives, it would open up a can of worms, and you would all find out what we're finding out today. That they have been basically serving as a middleman, buying junk for dirt cheap in China and selling it to us for hundreds and in some cases thousands of dollars. That is nuts. They brought up the fact that like a $38,000 Gucci or Prada purse or bag can actually be purchased directly from China for less than $1,000. The next time you go to eBay and try to buy Nike shoes, you'll notice they have an authenticity guarantee. What is that? That's where your shoes, before they get delivered to you, they actually go to another place where they get checked for their authenticity. You might say, this is good. If I'm going to buy a $100 pair of Nike Air Jordans, I want to make sure that I'm buying the actual thing. But what we don't question is, if we're not able to tell the difference without that product going to a guru or an expert, then why do we spend full price for something we should be spending a fourth of the price on? Here's another question I have for you. These Apple iPhones that everybody's in love with, right? You've heard this expression a lot over the past week or two, that if those things were sold and made here in America, that instead of spending $1,100 or $1,200 a year on one, you would be spending closer to $3,500, right? How many times have you heard iPhone would cost you $3,500 over the last month? You guys have heard that 100 times, right? What they don't tell you is, why does it cost $1,500 in the first place? If it's made in a place like China, in these factories where they don't pay anybody anything, why the hell is that phone $1,500? The truth is, we're getting ripped off already. That phone should be $400 or $500. If it were made here in America, it's not like you make one phone painstakingly at a time, like it's some internal watch from a watchmaker. It's probably coming off an assembly line, and I'd be willing to bet that dozens, if not hundreds, are being made every single minute of the day. Even if that's made in America, it should still not cost $1,600 or $1,700. So the only way that phone would cost $3,500 if it were made here is if people were foolish enough to spend that much money. And by the way, that's why that phone costs $1,500 or $1,600 every year, because some of us are foolish enough to spend that. God damn it. I think we've finally broken this shell. I think we've cracked this nut. This Chinese move is just to show us as Americans that it's not them that's ruining the world. It's our greedy business owners, your favorite influencer that's selling his own vitamins or his own this, that, and the other. He's just going to Chinese distributors, buying shit for dirt cheap and selling it to you for the top dollar. It's crazy, but it's true. We've all been getting scammed forever. I love this topic because it really does open up a can of worms. I really want us to imagine somebody trying to stop a shoplifter in one of these Lululemon stores. The shoplifter / thief / criminal ends up taking that person's life. Now there's an investigation. You start to realize, oh my God, Lululemon, they're buying their garments for $5, selling them for hundreds of dollars. That makes people want to steal their stuff. Somebody loses their life. No wonder you're firing people if they try to stop thieves. It's not because you're some honorable business. It's because you don't want the truth to be revealed. If I were you and you're a Lululemon fan, I would make a promise to yourself never to spend one more dollar on Lululemon. It sounds to me like you're literally buying a lemon. Could you imagine buying a $5,000 car for $50,000? That's what you're doing with Lululemon. Here's the crazy thing. Deep down, this is not new. This is not shocking. This is not surprising. There probably are some high-end companies that have nothing to do with these sweatshops. Everything is alleged, right? I can't prove anything. But I can prove you this. Most people that are getting rich off of eBay and Amazon distribution, most of them are buying stuff wholesale for as cheap as they can get it, and the cheapest place to buy stuff is China, and they're reselling it to you and I. It doesn't take rocket science to see that's true. This is simply China saying, hey, screw that greedy guy in the middle. Why don't you just buy your Lululemon stockings from us direct for $5 instead of $100? You know, take this shirt I have, for example. If I buy this from some of the t-shirt distributors that we see on YouTube, we've all seen them. If you're listening to my voice now, trust me, a t-shirt distributor commercial will pop up on your next feed the next time you're on your YouTube account. But technically speaking, if I buy a 5-pack of this from some sort of ad that you see on YouTube, 5 of these t-shirts is gonna run probably $35, $45, right? Like $20 a piece, something crazy. But if you honestly go and get this same shirt at Walmart or Target, you're looking at $5, $6, $7. Isn't that crazy? Take a look at these t-shirt makers on YouTube. They're selling you this same shirt for $30. It's just a close form-fitting t-shirt. It's the same thing that you can get from Walmart for $5. I hate to break it to you, but if you want to start saving money, this is God's way of talking to you. This is God's way of saying you really would be smarter just to go for whatever's the cheapest price and start putting that savings into your wallet, into your savings account, into your investments for the future. This is actually good news, guys, because this lets some people that are addicted to spending money, you're buying the wrong thing when you're going for the name brand. Buy something because you want to wear it. Buy something and get your money's worth out of it. Don't spend top dollar for this junk anymore. It sounds like they've been ripping us off forever. Quake Inc. says, LMAO, laughing my ass off. Dude is coping bad. He's talking about Anton Daniels. He knew he wasted money on that crap. See, that's the thing that's embarrassing. But that's kind of the rich man's folly. The rich man can't go to dinner for $40 or $50 like you and I can. He's got to go to the top line restaurant because he doesn't want to surround himself with the peasants, right? So he's got to buy $300, $400, $500 meals that you and I could buy for $30 or $40. He's got to buy a t-shirt with a name brand on it that costs $200 when you and I can be happy with a $10 shirt, right? So what he was doing on the videos is he was saying, I don't believe them. I think they're just saying this. I think they're angry because the tariffs. They probably are angry because of the tariffs, but they're probably thinking, hey, people bona fide love our materials and our products. Why wouldn't they want to buy them for 1/10 of the price? It's hard to argue with that logic. Real Bama FPV says, I'm an Anton fan, but this video is Cope 101. Buddy is one of the most materialistic people on YouTube and is having a hard time accepting that all of his designer shit he likes is bullshit. So imagine that. Everybody likes watching Anton Daniels. But one of the problems when you make a lot of money and you're successful and you're trying to get people to walk in your footsteps is you want to show people some of the toys that you acquire along the way. So I've seen shows where he's showing off his vintage Nike Air Jordans. I've seen shows where he's showing off his wristwatch and his pants and his shirt. Those are all materialistic things that if you're really struggling in life, you shouldn't necessarily want to waste your money on that. But at the same time, you see Anton succeeding and you're thinking, I want to be that someday. But now you're learning the truth. You can be that now. Just buy the cheap knockoff. It's pretty much the same thing. At 834 says, I traveled in the military and visited factories for years that were throughout Asia and Europe, and I can 1000% confirm that this is true. So imagine you actually know and get to see how the sausage is made. It changes you forever once you know how the sausage is made. Imagine going into one of these sweatshops in another country and you see literally 1,000 people sitting there at sewing machines making a product that people are spending an arm and a leg for. Well, there's somebody across the country that's literally wearing down their arms and legs to make that for you. Edward Nigma says, most luxury brands are built entirely on perception. That's exactly true. What Anton Daniels doesn't know is that just as many people would respect him if he wore a $10 Walmart shirt and said part of getting ahead in life is making smart decisions. By the way, Anton, I love your channel. There's absolutely nothing wrong with spending money that you've earned on things you want, even if they are expensive. And just because China says that the thing you purchased is really a knockoff, it doesn't mean it's true. So again, if you hear my words, Anton, I'm not talking shit, but your comments sure are. Active Rehab Mobility says, honestly, you can buy a $25,000 outfit from Gucci, but a $25 gym membership would make you look much better. Can I get an amen? And I can even do one better than that. If you can't afford a $25 membership, just put your shoes on and walk. If you walk every single day and you end up outliving other people, that's worth all the money in the world. A lot of us were growing up with Michael Jackson on the TV and on the radio, and I'd be willing to bet a lot of people wished that they could live his life. But correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Michael passed away at the age of 50. Would anybody really want a bunch of fame, a bunch of success, no privacy, if you were gonna only live to be 50? Your health is your real wealth. Walk with us every single day. Drink water, avoid sugar. Let's live forever. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Don't be buying this junk anymore.